She thought leaving would set her free, but what happened next no one saw coming. A husband's secrets, a staged disappearance, and a trail of clues that could expose everything. Watch until the end to see how one woman's quiet plan turned the tables forever. In the small town of Brookhaven, Lena Moore blended into the background. She was the kind of person people recognized but never truly noticed. Every morning, she walked to the local library with a neat handbag and calm expression. She greeted co-workers politely, arranged books carefully, and left exactly at 5 p.m. each day. To anyone watching, her life looked peaceful. At home, her husband Daniel Moore was admired by many. He spoke softly, dressed well, and was known as a reliable accountant who helped neighbors with their taxes. People often said Lena was lucky to have such a stable man. What they did not see was the silence inside the house. Daniel never shouted. He didn't need to. His control was quiet and constant. He decided when dinner was eaten, which friends were bad influences, and what topics were acceptable to discuss. If Lena questioned him, he would simply stop speaking for days. No anger, no violence, just cold distance that made her feel invisible. Over time, Lena learned to agree with everything. It was easier that way. But something changed the night she overheard Daniel on the phone. He laughed softly and told someone, "She wouldn't survive without me." The words were calm, almost casual, but they cut deeper than any insult. In that moment, Lena understood something clearly for the first time. Daniel didn't love her. He owned her. That realization stayed with her. It followed her to work, sat beside her on the bus, and whispered in her mind late at night. Slowly, quietly, Lena began to plan. She opened a new bank account during her lunch break, using a branch Daniel never visited. She memorized the account number and destroyed the paperwork. Then she started writing things down, small details most people would forget. Dates, times, exact sentences Daniel used when he thought she was weak. She hid these notes inside a library book that never left the building. Lena told no one, not her co-workers, not her family. She knew Daniel too well. If he sensed even a hint of escape, things would change fast. What Lena didn't realize was that Daniel had already noticed something different. The way she hesitated before answering, the way she watched him when he wasn't looking. While Lena believed her plan was invisible, Daniel was already paying attention. And in his mind, losing control was not an option. After Lena made her quiet decision, Daniel Moore became a different man, at least on the surface. The tension that once filled their house seemed to disappear overnight. He woke early to make coffee. He asked Lena how her day had been. He even laughed again, a sound she hadn't heard in years. To anyone watching, it looked like a marriage repairing itself. Lena, however, felt uneasy. Daniel's kindness didn't feel warm, it felt measured, like something rehearsed. Daniel had always been observant. Numbers were his business, patterns his strength. When Lena opened a separate bank account, he noticed small gaps in their shared finances. When she stayed an extra 10 minutes at work, he noticed that too. He didn't accuse her. He simply collected information, storing it away with the same care he gave to his client files. Late at night, Daniel sat alone in his home office, surrounded by spreadsheets that had nothing to do with money. He replayed conversations in his head, searching for meaning in Lena's tone, her posture, her silence. He concluded only one thing: she was preparing to leave. And that was unacceptable. Daniel believed he knew Lena better than she knew herself. He told himself she was fragile, confused, and incapable of surviving on her own. In his mind, stopping her wasn't cruelty, it was protection. That belief gave him permission to plan. One afternoon, Daniel made a phone call from a burner phone he kept hidden in his desk. He contacted Marcus Hale, a former client with a violent reputation and financial problems. Years ago, Daniel had helped Marcus avoid serious prison time. Now, Daniel intended to collect on that favor. Their meeting took place in a parking lot outside town. No witnesses. No records. Daniel spoke calmly, explaining exactly what he needed and how much he was willing to pay. Marcus didn't ask many questions. He didn't need to. Meanwhile, Daniel began shaping how others saw Lena. He casually told neighbors she seemed overwhelmed lately. He mentioned to her sister that Lena was emotionally exhausted. Each comment was small, delivered with concern, and easy to believe. By the time Lena sensed something was wrong, the air inside the house had changed. Daniel watched her closely, smiling when she entered the room, listening when she spoke. He hugged her longer than usual. Lena mistook it for fear of losing her. In reality, Daniel wasn't afraid. He was preparing for a version of the future where Lena's voice would no longer matter, and where his story would be the only one left to tell. The rain started just before sunset, slow and steady, turning the streets of Brookhaven into dark mirrors. Lena left the library at her usual time, waving goodbye to her co-workers like any other evening. No one noticed anything unusual. No one knew it would be the last time they saw her there. At home, Daniel waited. He checked the clock again and again, not with panic, but with precision. When 6:30 passed, then 7 o'clock, he did nothing. He reheated dinner. He washed a single plate. He made sure every light in the house was on. At 8:12 p.m., he stepped outside and looked down the empty street, as if hoping Lena might appear. At 9 p.m., he finally picked up his phone. His call to the police was calm but emotional. He said his wife had never stayed out this late without calling. He mentioned she had been stressed recently. He said he was worried she might hurt herself. Every word sounded sincere. Officers arrived within minutes. By midnight, Lena's car was found near the river, parked at an odd angle. The driver's door was open. Rainwater soaked the seats. Her phone lay on the floor, screen cracked, still buzzing with missed calls from Daniel. To the police, the scene spoke clearly. A troubled woman, a dark night, a fast-moving river nearby. Daniel stood behind the police tape, hands shaking, face pale. He answered questions softly, repeating the same story. Lena had been distant. She talked about needing space. He just wanted her safe. Neighbors gathered. Some cried. Others whispered. The idea that Lena might have chosen to disappear shocked them all. Search teams combed the riverbanks for days. Divers searched the water. Dogs followed trails that vanished near the edge. No body was found. But not everyone was convinced. One officer noticed something small but strange. Lena's shoes were missing. Not near the river, not in the car. Gone. Those who knew Lena well understood the problem. She hated walking barefoot. Even at home, she wore slippers. The idea that she would leave her shoes behind made no sense. Still, the case moved in a familiar direction. The public wanted answers, and the simplest answer was tragedy. Daniel appeared on local news, his voice breaking as he begged Lena to come home. He said he forgave her for leaving. He said he loved her. Behind the scenes, though, Daniel slept peacefully. As days passed and hope faded, one thing became clear. Lena Moore had vanished without a trace. And the man who knew her best had made sure the world believed she wanted it that way. 6 months had passed since Lena Moore disappeared. The initial frenzy had faded, news reports grew sparse, and the search teams disbanded. Brookhaven had settled into a quiet unease. People whispered in grocery stores and parks, sharing theories that ranged from a spontaneous escape to a terrible accident. Daniel Moore remained the grieving husband, performing his role flawlessly. He attended memorials, organized candlelight vigils, and even donated money to river safety programs. Everyone who saw him believed he was heartbroken. But one person refused to accept appearances at face value: Officer Rachel Kim. She had been quietly reviewing the files from Lena's disappearance, her intuition nagging at her like a persistent shadow. Something about Daniel's story didn't fit. The timeline was too perfect. Daniel had reported Lena missing after he had already called several friends, asking if they had seen her. He knew which search paths the dogs and officers would follow. His grief, Rachel noticed, seemed carefully measured, never spilling into panic, never inconsistent. Then there were the small inconsistencies. Daniel's account of where he last saw Lena changed slightly with each retelling. Sometimes he said she had walked into the kitchen, sometimes the driveway. The amount of money Lena had withdrawn from her separate bank account didn't match Daniel's knowledge, yet he never mentioned it. And most importantly, Lena's shoes had never been found, an oddity dismissed by other officers. Rachel dug deeper. She reviewed Lena's library records and noticed a peculiar detail. One book Lena had checked out shortly before her disappearance had never been returned. Curious, Rachel obtained a copy from a different branch. When she opened it, something fell out from the back cover, a folded piece of paper. Inside were photocopies of Lena's hidden notebook pages. Dates, notes, and observations were meticulously recorded, detailing every controlling move Daniel had made over the years. Rachel read through them, her pulse quickening, and then she noticed a name repeated throughout: Marcus. Marcus Hale, the man Daniel had quietly called before Lena's disappearance. A man with a history of violence, someone who had disappeared shortly after that call. Rachel realized she had a lead everyone else had ignored. Daniel's plan was far more calculated than anyone imagined. Lena hadn't simply vanished. She had left behind breadcrumbs, and Daniel had unknowingly led them straight to her. This discovery changed everything. It wasn't just a missing person case anymore. It was a story of manipulation, deception, and survival. And for the first time, Rachel believed Lena might still be alive. The quiet town of Brookhaven, once convinced of tragedy, was about to uncover a truth far more sinister and far more shocking than anyone had anticipated. The morning after Officer Rachel Kim discovered the hidden notebook pages, Daniel Moore's carefully constructed world began to unravel. By afternoon, he was under questioning, calm at first, then defensive, then frantic. Every detail he had rehearsed, every lie he had perfected over 6 months, was being dismantled piece by piece. Marcus Hale, the man Daniel had bribed to stage Lena's disappearance, was already in custody. Under pressure, Marcus confessed to the plan. He had been paid to place Lena's car near the river, smash her phone, and make it appear as though she had vanished into the night. But Marcus added something Daniel hadn't expected. Lena had been alive when he last saw her. It was a shock that no one in Brookhaven anticipated. The quiet, missing woman was alive. Daniel had assumed she had no power, that she was trapped in fear. In reality, Lena had been several steps ahead. Later that evening, just as the town began to digest the shocking developments, Lena Moore walked into a police station 2 towns over. Her hair was thinner, her face pale and marked with stress, but her eyes held the unmistakable spark of determination. She was alive, she was safe, and she was ready to tell the story herself. Lena explained everything. She had known Daniel would never let her leave peacefully. She had created a plan that required absolute secrecy and careful timing. She had arranged with Marcus to stage the disappearance while she went into hiding with the help of a former librarian friend who lived off-grid. She had left the notebook as a trail for anyone willing to look closely enough. Every moment Daniel had thought he was in control, Lena had been orchestrating the truth to come out at the perfect moment. By pretending to vanish completely, she forced Daniel to reveal the lengths he would go to maintain power. Daniel was arrested immediately, facing charges of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and attempted murder. In court, the calm, respected man everyone admired cracked under the weight of his own deception. His lies were laid bare, his reputation destroyed. Lena, meanwhile, requested little attention. She changed her name, moved to another city, and began rebuilding her life from scratch. She did not run. She survived. In the end, it was Lena's quiet courage, patience, and meticulous planning that brought justice to Brookhaven. She had tried to leave, and in doing so, she changed everything. Daniel Moore's empire of control collapsed, leaving only the truth and a woman who refused to be silenced, standing strong. No one would ever underestimate Lena Moore again.